Tired of tedious refactoring and hunting down related code changes? Have no fear, Next Edit Suggestions is here. Hi developers, welcome to GitHub Checkout, your inside look at the latest features and updates that level up your workflows. I'm Andrea Griffiths, Senior Developer Advocate. Today, we're diving into one of the most exciting new releases in VS Code, Next Edit Suggestions. Joining us is Brigit Murtaugh, Senior PM for VS Code, who's going to show us how this feature can change the way that you edit code. If you ever spend hours tediously refactoring or hunting down all the places you need to update when changing a variable name or logic, you're going to love what NES has to offer. Welcome, Brigit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, so I'm super excited because I'm a big fan of Copilot, obviously. I want to learn all about Next Edit Suggestions. So could you explain to us what it is, why it was created, and let's see how we can enable it?
If you have been using Copilot completions, you'll see that they're really good at adding new code and adding new logic. And another huge part of software development is editing existing code and refactoring and catching and fixing mistakes. And so that's the goal of Copilot Next Edit Suggestions. It's going to pick up, hey, if I'm editing code, what should the next edit be? And where should that edit be located? Now, to enable it, it's super easy. All you need to do is in your VS Code settings, just enable Copilot Next Edit Suggestions. So I have that box checked here. I'm using VS Code Insiders, which is just our nightly build. I love getting all the latest features and fixes, so I'm sure to use VS Code Insiders and the Copilot and Copilot Chat pre-release extensions in VS Code. To kind of frame our demos for today, I've categorized them in a few different sets. So for instance, NES can be really good at helping you with changing intent of your code, adding new logic, changing or fixing logic, and doing refactoring. So we're going to look at a couple of examples in each of those categories. So here we are starting in a TypeScript file, and we can see that it's the definition of a point class. Right now, this is a two-dimensional point class. I can tell because it has an X and a Y variable. But what if I wanted to go ahead and make this a three-dimensional or 3D point class? I'm going to go ahead and change the name to point3D. And immediately, Copilot NES kicks in. And so it says, hey, it looks like you no longer intend for this to be a 2D point, but instead a 3D point. And I think you're going to want to add a Z variable. It highlights the diff here really nicely too, so that way we can see what is being added or changed in our code. So you can use the Tab key on your keyboard, just like you do with Copilot completions or ghost text, and you'll be able to navigate to and accept suggestions from NES. Or if you want to learn a little bit more about what's going on here, you can hover over this arrow that we have in the gutter menu, and you can learn a little bit more about the key bindings or about NES overall. So point3D, I'm going to hit Tab on my keyboard. Now it's brought me into where the suggestion is. All I have to do is hit Tab again, and I've accepted it. Next Edit Suggestions is going to kick in again, and it's going to say, hey, you probably also want to update how you are doing your get distance calculation and incorporate Z there too. So I'm going to tab to get to it, tab to accept. But if I don't want it, I can hit escape. No need to accept it. Here I have a C++ file that does some different mathematics calculations. As I look through these, I see I have one that is for get minimum, or it's called get min. What if I wanted to make this get max instead? So I can update the title here to get max. And Copilot's going to detect, I think that instead of min, you want to call this double max now, which sounds good to me. So tab, tab. And what's cool is now it's going to be able to continue suggesting how to update my logic based on this change in intent. So I'll tab to accept these. And finally, I should go ahead and return the max too. One category that I've called is adding logic. And so a lot of times we'll go ahead and add some new code into an existing file or an existing project. And then we want to go ahead and update other existing parts of that project to call that new code. So as one example here, I have a simple Hello World VS Code extension. It's a TypeScript project. And maybe I'd like to go ahead and add a new disposable to help display the date and time for my extension. So in here, I'm going to start typing DateTime disposable. And here we can see ghost text completions comes into place. I'm going to tab to accept these and accept all of those changes. I think I need to go ahead and make some changes to my package.json in this extension. So go ahead and open it up here. And I believe here is where that change needs to go, because I can see where the other command in my extension is called. I should call the DateTime one here too. So if I want to go back and check and make sure, okay, I think this is called extension show DateTime, make sure I call that correctly. Cool. I navigate back to my package.json, and NES was able to detect, I think you want to go ahead and show the current date and time. It's I'm going to tab to accept that. And NES is going to continue looking through this file to see other changes that may cascade based on that change. In this Python example, here we want to add some more logic. So right now, this is a guessing game for some numbers, and there's 2 players. So what if I wanted to make it a 3 or 4 player guessing game? So at the top here, maybe I want to go ahead and say, hey, like I'm going to call player 3. And now we're going to get some completions that I'll tab to accept. Player 4, sounds good. And then looking ahead, I think that we're going to need to refactor some things. And before I could kind of even finish that thought, NES kicks in and says, hey, it looks like you have some logic here that is dependent on there being 2 players. We should expand that and add more to it now that we have a 3rd and a 4th player. So adding some more variables here and making sure that we're calling them properly. Tab to accept it. And what's nice here is I think a lot of times when I'm making changes or refactoring, you kind of have to spend a lot of time both understanding what the current code does and understanding then its different dependencies and references and how other parts are calling that code. And so NES really takes away some of that manual work.
That was super fast, by the way. And you did nothing to call this. It's just because you have NES enabled.
Exactly. Yep. I didn't have to specifically type something. It starts thinking as you're working. Now let's move on to changing and fixing logic, which I think is one that is really nice because it's natural that as we make changes, maybe we make a mistake or maybe logic isn't super easy to detect. Having Copilot help speed up that process, I found to be really valuable. At the top here, I see that it is a word game. And right now it's saying that there's a list of 5 possible words that are involved. That's probably not going to be the most exciting game over time. And so I'd love to just refactor this of, okay, I'd like to maybe have 10 words, 15 words, 20 words. So let's see if I go ahead and say 10 words. Copilot was able to be creative enough to think of 5 additional words for me. I can tab to go ahead and accept that. And we can even kind of get nuanced where maybe if right now all of these words are 5 letters long, if we wanted to make them 8 letters long or 10 letters long or some variable, we could make that update here. And then Copilot can help us again detect where else is that logic used and where else should we be making updates. I have a few different functions defined here in this TypeScript file. I think there might be a few different ways that I want to try reworking them. So for instance, I have this function greet. What if I wanted to say farewell instead? I could go ahead and say farewell. And what's really cool is that Copilot is not only detecting changes in, okay, this should be a double versus an int, or this should be synchronous versus asynchronous. It also gets more of those semantic changes. If I'm renaming this to farewell, I probably want to say goodbye instead of hello, which is just a really nice touch. As I look later in my file, I see that I do have some uses of greet later on. And if I go over there, because I see now that those are errors since there no longer is a greet function, Copilot NES kicks in and says, okay, I think you want to call farewell now. And then it also kind of adjusts these to say, I think this should now say goodbye, or I think this should say see you. And so it really matches both making sure my code will compile and run properly, but also that it makes sense with the changes I wanted to make. Another instance in which we're changing some logic would be maybe right now this function has 2 parameters. I'd like to make it 3. So I could say C, and then it kicks in really fast again. And it says, okay, so maybe you want to implement C in this way, and you also would want to go ahead and call it. Tab to accept it. I think that looks good. Sometimes I'll then suggest, okay, maybe you want to go ahead and use that new logic you just added. I don't think I want to do that right now, so no worries. I'm just going to escape on my keyboard. One more example we have here today. This is in the category I've called refactoring. This is really where you're making changes are going to be cascading. So this is a Java project. And right now it's asking as one of the first things, asking for the user's first name. I remembered that I actually need to ask for the user's last name as well. So I'm going to say and last name. All right. So it's thought about, I think that we should then specifically call name first name, which sounds good to me. And we should also have a variable, a string to collect the last name, which sounds good. So I'll tab to accept that. And then it's able to continue refactoring my project based on this change or based on this addition. So I'm going to tab to accept that. Another refactoring is right now we're asking for the user's favorite programming language. Maybe I've changed my mind and I want to know what are people's least favorite programming languages. So I'm going to say least there. And it's going to then update the print statement that we have to the user. And then again, it's able to not only fix kind of like core programming logic, but also semantic and meaning and intent of things. So Okay, maybe we're going to say it's interesting instead because we're saying that this is someone's least instead of most favorite language. If you are changing a variable or a piece of logic that is used a ton through a project, which would normally involve quite a bit of refactoring, NES can really help speed that up for you. So I have this scanner variable. What if I wanted to rename it to scan? It's going to go through NES and detect where scanner is and help me remove those last 3 letters that are no longer there. So I'll tab to accept that. And it's pretty fun. It's pretty satisfying. And it really just speeds things up being able to refactor my code in this way. I think that's a good overview of some of the scenarios that NES can really shine in VS Code and an example for maybe where folks can get started. And we'd love to then hear how you use NES and how it works for you. What went well? What could be better? Our team is really eager to hear your feedback and how we can improve this experience.
I love how you retain control, but the time savings, has it impacted your team?
Yeah, absolutely. Our team is super big on self-hosting. So we're always self-hosting all the latest features. We're building new VS Code builds and Copilot builds nightly. And so the team has been on NES now for a while.
How is the team collecting feedback and what kind of feedback are you interested in?
Yeah, our team is super active on GitHub. We have a github.com/Microsoft/VS Code-Copilot-release. That is a perfect spot where our team is actively reviewing issues and feedback from the community. So any issues that you experience, that GitHub repo is the best place to file them or even to check out other issues and see if other folks might have encountered something. I think getting feedback from folks about what UI and rendering modes and flows work well, that is super helpful feedback to us because we are iterating on settings like this because we really want to make it where folks can discover and use NES easily and that it also doesn't feel like it's getting in the way or anything.
Giving developers the freedom to use the tool the way they want to is huge. Brigit, thank you so much for this amazing walkthrough of NES.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a ton of fun to show off, and we're so excited for more folks to check it out.
That was your first look at this powerful new feature. Let me know in the comments, have you enabled it yet? What type of edits has it helped you with the most? And if you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new feature updates and dev tips. Push those changes to main, and we'll catch you in the next release.